Ilia Topuria outboxed the best puncher in the UFC, Max Holloway, through a single key element: slipping. In MMA and kicking sports, slipping is an often misunderstood technique. However, when used effectively, it is the game changer. Ilia Topuria's victory against Max Holloway is the new meta in MMA for effective slipping. How does one effectively use slipping in a sport that allows kicking? Let's take a closer look. For an in-depth breakdown, we called in the expert. This is a collaboration between Calf Kick Sports, Tim Wheaton, and Ghost of Phantom Punch Breakdowns, who is an expert of striking and works alongside UFC fighters, including champions. Check the description for more information. Let's take an in-depth look at slipping for MMA. Let's just start with some basics. A slip entry refers to a movement where a fighter evades a punch by leaning or slipping to one side. We've got borders and we've got pockets. Borders is striking from range. The lead hands can touch and we still need to take one step in to land a low kick. The pocket is the fight range. From here, any striker takedown is within distance. Switching from borders to pocket requires strategy so one doesn't run into a strike. And once in the pocket, a fighter is in danger, so we need to know the proper mechanics, and this is where we run into three key angles. Once in the pocket, we have on the fence, squared up, and on the tracks. And on the fence, your lead leg is aligned with your opponent's lead leg. From here, to land a strike, your opponent will need to readjust and is counterable during that pivot. Squared up is when a fighter has their foot pointed at their opponent's crotch. Their opponent's hips are square. A fighter in this stance can be knocked off balance from a teep or front kicks. These two positions are typically used for exiting striking exchanges. Now, on the tracks is where the fight happens and where the study of slips really begins. On the tracks is when the rear and front feet are directly aligned while being in the pocket. Lead foot to rear foot and rear foot to lead foot. They are facing each other in range. From here, we can take a look at slipping. Don't bend at the waist, don't duck deep, and never have your chin ahead of your lead knee. A slip is a transfer of weight from the rear foot to lead foot or lead foot to rear foot. And this is a game of inches. You should want to feel the wind of your opponent's strike on your cheek. Weight transitioning to lead and back again is having your head, knee, and ankle aligned from either side. When one is standing with their weight on the rear, then the rear hand is the power hand. When the weight is on the lead side, then the lead hand is the power hand. The non-power hand is then used for feinting or controlling. Most fighters use a dynamic sway rather than being at extremes as always on the front foot or back foot. Look at the dynamic sway as Ilia Topuria moves. The constant weight shift from rear to lead. Here he is using slipping at borders as a way to enter the pocket. A slip punch leads to a counterattack. Now let's get back to Max and Ilia. From borders, Ilia will load his weight on the rear foot while using his lead hand to control Holloway's jabbing line. This allowed Topuria to be in position to cross-counter Holloway's jab since he had mechanically loaded his rear side. Take a look at some of Ilia's work in this match against Max. His slipping was key to his victory against two pound-for-pound greats, so why couldn't it be countered with kicks? Jai Herbert, for example, had success countering Topuria with head kicks. Both Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski tried to use step-up high kicks to counter this. The problem is that these are slower and can be telegraphed in a closed stance matchup. Both Holloway and Volkanovski attempted to time their high kicks when Topuria was already slipping into the lead foot position. This is stepping to the front. When Ilia shifts his weight to his lead foot, he can more easily lean back or block attacks, making it harder for opponents to land effective strikes, especially the shorter lead leg high kick. This is further complicated by the fact that high kicks in closed stance matchups are already harder to land. Let's take a closer look at when to use kicks to counter slipping and why some of these kicks are ineffective. To understand that, we have to take a look at loaded slips and counterbalance slips. A loaded slip is when a fighter commits their entire weight to one foot during the slip. This means that the stance is heavily shifted to one side and the fighter's center of gravity is over that leg. Counterbalancing. This refers to using the hips and torso as a counterbalance during slips, allowing the fighter to move their head off the center line while maintaining mobility and the ability to move forward. Here's a loaded slip, a committed weight transition. This type of slip is useful just outside of striking range as a feint because the fighter's weight is already set for a quick step in or counter, as we were talking about before entering the pocket. The fighter can only move backwards easily if attacked since their weight is already on one foot. This is the right time to time a head kick against a slipping opponent. Here's using a loaded slip at the wrong time. Now the problem with a loaded slip, the loaded slip commits weight to one side of the stance, so the fighter that uses it is vulnerable to feints and movement. When a fighter commits their weight to a single side, they are stuck there for a split second. In rule sets that involve kicking, MMA, kickboxing, and Muay Thai, these types of slips can be exploited by ending combinations with either a high kick or a low kick. A high kick lands in the space where the head is going, and the low kick is to punish the committed weight transition where the opponent is not in a position to check or retract the leg. Now, this is an example of counterbalance slips. Notice how Mike Tyson uses a windshield wiper motion with his upper body to slip straight punches, but he's also able to move forward at the same time. This is most effective from a squared stance like the peekaboo style used by Mike Tyson. The fighter can slip and step in simultaneously, keeping pressure constantly on the opponent. Ilia Topuria knocked out pound-for-pound greats Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski. Now he is moving up in weight to face Charles Oliveira for the vacant UFC lightweight title, upcoming this weekend at UFC 317. While slipping remains a nuanced technique requiring precise weight shifts and constant awareness of stances and angles, its effectiveness is undeniable, especially when executed with the dynamic footwork and adaptability that Ilia Topuria displays. Even the most advanced techniques must be wielded with caution. Most importantly, the effectiveness of timing. Using these techniques at the right time versus the wrong time is the difference between eating a head kick and delivering a knockout blow. Ghost of Phantom Punch Breakdowns is the leading expert on striking matters in MMA. Working alongside various MMA and UFC champions, he has been a key partner in breaking down striking to a science. For those looking to elevate their striking game, be sure to check out the expert breakdowns and resources linked below to dive deeper into the science of striking in MMA.